Hello and welcome back. This is MC1 Gamer bringing you a little bit of a hobby update. I've been working heavily on some terrain pieces that I can use for a variety of different games. Initially, this was meant for historical gaming, so games like Bolt Action, the Battle Group system, which is 15 mil, both World War II. But I could easily use this stuff with fantasy or any number of other games, Mordheim and whatnot. So I really wanted to make some scale appropriate hedges. I'm doing a demo at NJCon this weekend rather, on Saturday, doing the battle group system as well as the bolt action, and I needed some stuff that I could, I needed some stuff to populate the board. So I'll be taking pictures of the board. Some of this is going to be and has been already used for the worldwide D-Day campaign that, or I think it's Oriskany. It has been running on the Beasts of War website. So this is a worldwide campaign commemorating D-Day and recreating lots of different areas in the first 24 hours of the D-Day invasion. So I'm just adding to this because I'm running this again, this scenario, and I just built a whole bunch of stuff. So underneath here, I've got some MDF strips that are going to be the roads. I've got a whole bunch of bocage and some regular hedges, and then of course trees. So, and then I've got some telephone poles. I weighted them down so because they're gonna be bumped on the table, and a little a little metal weight really helps. Nothing crazy with the trees. I mean, standard trees from Woodland Scenics I forget the other name of the place, but Notch I think it was, and I just put them on these MDF bases. These were really simple. A couple of these things I'm sure you've seen already. You probably have plenty of demos or plenty of videos that you've seen on how to make some of this stuff. So making the bocage is it's a labor intensive process, but nothing worse than probably anything that you've already been doing. I just put the tank here for scale and the one figure of my para for scale, just so you can see that it's going to be reasonably high. Maybe about 8 or 10 feet, maybe 12 feet on some of them, because they're not all going to be the same, and they shouldn't be. These were pretty easy to make. I made cut out the MDF board at the bottom, and even though they're still losing some of the stuff on them, they're holding it pretty well. So these are scour pads, just those green scrubbing pads, and then you cut them to length, and then you fold them over, hot glue them when you fold them over, so give them a little bit of thickness, and then you can mount them then on the MDF, and then just Elmer's glue all throughout, and then dip them into some flocking, and they hold up pretty well. And then I went afterwards and I just watered down Elmer's glue, PVA glue, and then just went over it, so it holds up pretty well. It's not really losing a lot of that stuff as we go, so that's pretty good. That worked out pretty well. This is a lot more work. So these actually start out, I'm going to show you the process. Now, I didn't invent this process, but if anybody wants to know, it's hot glue. I got some of these resin bases that I showed previously, and I cleared out the canal in between. And, it works better for the 28 mil, but I actually lined it up with a 15, and it's just as good. And these bocage will even be more imposing. So I took these, this kind of window screening, or you can use chicken wire, and you cut it out and fold it over, and I always fold these bottom parts in so they have kind of teeth that go in, and then they're kind of flattish on the bottom. They don't have to be completely, you don't have to go crazy with that, but then you hot glue across and then mount these on, and they really stick well. And then once you do that, I guess I'm trying two different methods with mounting the clump foliage onto it. One is hot gluing little clumps, because I saw that method and it worked really well. And this stuff, look, nothing's falling off. Little shavings occasionally will, but it's pretty sturdy, and nothing. It's still it still compresses a little bit, but that's a long process. So the next process I'm trying, and I'm going to see how this works, is I'm going to start off with hobby tack, which is how you make a lot of these trees with their flocking anyway, woodland scenic stuff. But I'm going to go and you can see some of the wounds from my that are healing up from some of my terrain making exercises. In any case, who in the hobby doesn't have a couple of scars? Anyway, I'm going to hobby tack all this metal mesh and then dip it into, once it gets clear and ready to be sticky, dip it into the clump foliage, which is not usually large masses of clump. They usually are just they're small shavings anyway. They're not large pieces, at least not the bags that I have, which I wish they were a little bit more a little more connected to each other in larger groups. But in any case, dipping this in, and then I'll spot it further after that with the hot glue with clumps, and then fill it out so that it looks more like that. Really imposing obstacles that that'll be hard to pass. And then of course I'm gonna do some more flocking on the bases and do a little more additional painting just to add some variety. And I might try to put some different color foliage on some of these as well, with maybe some maybe even some lichen. We'll see. But as it stands right now, I've got a huge bunch. I had enough to do the D-Day scenario that I'm doing, which is just past the Normandy beach on Utah into Bocage country, and I had a good amount. I have all these nice low hedges which really help, but I want more of these. I have enough to do most of the lining of the road coming into this little farm and town area, but I want more, so I want to make them more. And as you can see, I've got a lot of these already made up, including some smaller ones and a little cheap. I probably can get a better version of this hot glue gun, but that works pretty well. Until that breaks, that's what I'm going to use. But I have a bunch of these lined up. So there you have it. Some updates. I'm going to use this again for a lot for World War II stuff, but this really also works really nicely for a lot of other different games. You could use it for Mordheim, Warhammer Fantasy. Of course, it can't populate as much. You don't need quite as much terrain on the Warhammer Fantasy when it comes to these types of things, but you still make a nice board. But this is mainly going to be for historical stuff. And, a nice little case here to cart it around. I could certainly fill it up with a lot more stuff. And, we'll see how it goes. Look out for videos for that, as well as other games coming up. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody.